Arjun Malhotra arrived in Canada, chasing fame and global recognition. But behind the confident smile and rising star image was a trail of secrets that would turn his success into a criminal investigation and end with prison bars replacing red carpets. He arrived in Canada with a carefully crafted image and a quiet sense of confidence that came from early success back home. In India, he had built a modest but loyal following through regional films and television roles, often praised for his serious expressions and emotionally intense performances. Casting directors saw him as reliable and disciplined, and producers considered him low risk. When opportunities in India began to slow, Canada appeared to offer something new, a place where international stories were being told and South Asian actors were gaining attention. To the public, his move looked bold and inspiring. In the first few months, everything seemed to work in his favor. He attended film festivals, appeared at cultural events, and connected with influential people within immigrant creative circles. Social media played a major role in shaping his identity. Carefully selected photos showed him smiling at auditions, posing near film sets, and supporting community causes. Followers believed they were watching the rise of an international star, someone who represented ambition and hard work. Few noticed how controlled and repetitive the content was, designed to hide uncertainty and stress. Behind the scenes, his life was far less stable. He struggled with the cost of living, irregular work, and the pressure to maintain a successful image. Acting roles were limited, and competition was intense. Still, he refused to step back. Instead, he leaned harder into appearances, attending private gatherings and networking aggressively. He began spending money faster than he earned, convinced that success was just one breakthrough away. This belief pushed him deeper into risky choices, slowly blurring the line between ambition and desperation, setting the stage for everything that followed. The turning point came suddenly and without warning, shattering the image he had worked so hard to protect. Late one night, police vehicles filled a normally quiet residential street, their flashing lights drawing curious neighbors to their windows. Reports of unusual activity inside an apartment had prompted an emergency response, and by the time officers entered the building, the situation had already escalated beyond control. Within hours, his name began circulating among authorities, and by morning it had reached the media. News outlets moved quickly, publishing incomplete details that fueled speculation. Headlines hinted at serious criminal charges, and social media erupted with confusion and disbelief. Fans who had followed his journey from India to Canada struggled to understand how someone admired for discipline and humility could be involved in such a situation. What initially appeared to be a misunderstanding soon became something far more troubling, as investigators confirmed the incident was not minor or accidental. As the day progressed, his public image collapsed. Brands quietly removed promotional posts, and event organizers canceled appearances without explanation. Television panels debated the case, while online forums dissected every past interview and photograph, searching for hidden signs. His arrest marked a dramatic fall from grace, transforming him from a symbol of aspiration into the center of a growing scandal. Authorities remained cautious, releasing limited information but confirming that the investigation was ongoing and serious in nature. This silence only intensified public curiosity. Each passing hour brought new rumors, many of them darker than the last. By the end of the week, it was clear that this was not a temporary setback or a public relations issue. The incident had opened a door to deeper scrutiny, and once opened, it could not be closed. The story was no longer about an actor chasing success abroad. It had become the begin. As investigators widened their focus, the polished surface of his life began to crack. What first drew attention were his finances, which did not align with the struggling actor narrative he had publicly presented. Bank records showed frequent cash deposits, luxury purchases, and overseas transactions that could not be explained by his limited acting work. Rent payments for upscale residences and the lease of high-end vehicles raised further suspicion. Authorities started questioning how someone with a regular income could maintain such a lifestyle without another source of money. Attention soon shifted to his social circle. He was regularly seen with individuals already known to law enforcement for fraud, illegal betting, and underground businesses. Though no direct links had been proven at first, patterns of repeated contact were impossible to ignore. Surveillance records placed him at private gatherings where questionable deals were rumored to occur. These meetings were never posted online, carefully kept away from the image he shared with fans. Digital analysis added another layer. Multiple phones, encrypted apps, and constantly changing email addresses suggested deliberate attempts to stay hidden. Investigators found evidence that accounts were frequently deleted and recreated, making long-term tracking difficult. This behavior was inconsistent with someone who claimed to live openly and honestly. Instead, it suggested planning, secrecy, and awareness of potential consequences. As more details emerged, the idea that he was simply an actor caught in the wrong place at the wrong time became less believable. His fame appeared to be a shield rather than an achievement, allowing him access to spaces others could not easily enter. The public began to sense that acting was only one part of his identity, and possibly not the most important one. The deeper authorities looked, the clearer it became that his success story had been carefully staged. As the Canadian investigation intensified, attention turned back to his life in India, where his story had first begun. Law enforcement agencies requested records from multiple cities, searching for any past incidents that might explain his current behavior. What they uncovered surprised even experienced investigators. Several old complaints, once ignored or quietly closed, began to resurface. Individually, they had seemed insignificant or lacked evidence. Together, they formed a troubling pattern that could no longer be dismissed. These records described situations with similar circumstances, timelines, and outcomes. Each case involved confusion, sudden silence from witnesses, and unresolved conclusions. At the time, his growing popularity had worked in his favor. His public image as a disciplined actor had discouraged deeper scrutiny, and complainants were often overshadowed by his influence. Some reports suggested pressure, while others hinted at fear of damaging his rising career. Nothing had moved forward legally, but nothing had truly disappeared either. Investigators noticed that many of these past incidents occurred during periods of professional transition, moments when his career faced uncertainty. This detail raised serious concerns. It suggested that stress and instability might have triggered repeated behavior, rather than a single mistake. The same locations, the same methods of avoiding attention, and the same rapid exits appeared again and again across different years. The reopening of these records marked a major shift in the case. What was once framed as an isolated incident in Canada now looked like the latest chapter in a much longer story. Authorities realized they were not just dealing with a fallen celebrity, but someone who had managed to escape accountability for years. Public reaction changed sharply as these details became known. Sympathy faded, replaced by anger and disbelief. The past he had worked so hard to bury was now fully. The case reached a critical moment when forensic teams began analyzing the evidence recovered from his devices and personal spaces. What they found transformed suspicion into something far more concrete. Data experts uncovered layers of deleted files, hidden folders, and wiped communication logs. These were not random deletions, but carefully timed actions, often occurring just hours after key events. Metadata revealed patterns that suggested intent, not panic. Each erased message left behind a digital shadow, and those shadows began to align into a clear sequence of events. Location data became another powerful tool. Despite his claims of limited movement, tracking records placed him at multiple locations connected to the investigation. These movements were precise and repeated, contradicting earlier assumptions of coincidence. Surveillance footage from nearby buildings supported the data, capturing fragments of activity that filled in crucial gaps. Even small details, such as changes in clothing and altered routines, pointed toward deliberate planning. Physical evidence added further weight. Items recovered from his residence showed signs of hurried disposal, as if someone had tried to erase their presence without enough time to do it properly. Forensic specialists confirmed that these items matched materials referenced in the digital records. Individually, each finding raised concern. Together, they formed a narrative that was impossible to ignore. As these discoveries were reviewed, investigators concluded that the situation extended far beyond a single incident. The evidence suggested preparation, repetition, and awareness of risk. Public confidence in his innocence collapsed almost overnight. Supporters who once defended him now struggled to justify the growing mountain of facts. The case had crossed a point of no return. What was once hidden behind fame and careful image control was now fully exposed through science and data, revealing actions that could. The trial brought everything into the open, turning months of investigation into a clear and structured account of his actions. The courtroom became the place where his carefully built image finally collapsed. Prosecutors presented evidence step by step, showing how events unfolded over time rather than as a single moment of failure. Financial records, digital traces, and forensic reports were connected to form a timeline that was difficult to challenge. Each detail reinforced the idea that what happened was planned and repeated, not accidental. As the days passed, the weight of the case grew heavier. Expert analysis explained how data had been hidden and later recovered, proving attempts to avoid detection. Movement records demonstrated consistency in behavior across different locations and dates. When past incidents from India were formally acknowledged, the pattern became undeniable. The court began to view the case not as the downfall of celebrity, but as the exposure of long-term misconduct protected by status and silence. Public attention was intense. Media coverage followed every development, and public opinion shifted further as the evidence accumulated. Support faded almost completely, replaced by questions about how long the truth had been ignored. The idea that fame could delay justice became a central theme of the case. When the judgment was finally delivered, it carried a strong message. The court described the actions as deliberate, harmful, and sustained over time. His career, once filled with promise, was officially over. The sentence handed down was severe, reflecting both the seriousness of the crime and the effort taken to conceal it. In that moment, the story changed forever. The actor was no longer defined by his roles on screen, but by the crimes that led him from red carpets to a prison cell in a foreign country. The sentencing marked the beginning of a long and painful aftermath that reached far beyond the courtroom. Within days, his name vanished from streaming platforms, promotional material, and industry databases. Films he had once proudly advertised were quietly edited or pulled altogether. Casting agencies distanced themselves, releasing brief statements that avoided details but made their position clear. The entertainment world moved on quickly, as if erasing him could undo the damage. Among fans, the reaction was deeply divided at first. Some struggled to accept the verdict, clinging to the image they had believed in for years. Others felt anger and shame, questioning how they had supported someone capable of such actions. Online communities that once celebrated his journey now analyzed it with regret, pointing out moments that seemed suspicious in hindsight. What had once been inspiration was now a lesson in misplaced trust. The impact extended into immigrant communities as well. His story was frequently referenced in discussions about accountability and responsibility abroad. Community leaders emphasized that success in a foreign country carried greater scrutiny, not protection. The case became an example used in workshops, articles, and documentaries about how fame can silence victims and delay justice. His downfall forced uncomfortable conversations that many had avoided for years. Financial consequences followed quickly. Assets were seized, contracts were terminated, and legal costs drained what remained of his wealth. The luxurious lifestyle that once suggested success disappeared entirely. He was transferred into the prison system as just another inmate, stripped of the status that had once shielded him. Outside the prison walls, life continued, but the shadow of the case remained. The aftermath proved that the sentence was not the end of the story, but the beginning of a lasting reckoning that would define his legacy forever. Years later, the case is remembered not for the fame of the man at its center, but for the truth it exposed. The actor who once symbolized ambition and success is now reduced to a case file, studied by journalists, students, and investigators as an example of how carefully constructed images can hide long-term wrongdoing. His rise and fall became a reminder that talent and recognition do not cancel accountability. The public fascination slowly faded, but the impact of the case remained. Inside prison, his former life no longer mattered. There were no cameras, no admirers, and no special treatment. Time moved slowly, measured only by routine and isolation. The same discipline he once claimed to have as an artist now served only to help him survive each day behind bars. Outside, his name was rarely spoken without context. When it was mentioned, it carried a warning rather than admiration. The dark truth behind the case forced many to rethink how easily trust is given to public figures. Investigators later confirmed that if earlier signs had been taken seriously, much harm could have been prevented. Silence, influence, and fear had allowed the pattern to continue for years. The Canadian conviction closed that chapter permanently, ensuring it could not be repeated elsewhere. For viewers, the story ends with a powerful lesson. The most dangerous secrets often hide behind success, confidence, and carefully chosen smiles. What looks like inspiration can sometimes be deception in disguise. This case proves that no matter how far someone runs, the past has a way of catching up. The spotlight that once protected him ultimately became the light that exposed everything. What began as a dream of international fame ended as a permanent record of truth, leaving behind a legacy defined not by films, but by consequences.